I'm Kayla, the booktube turtle, and today's video is a little different than usual. Obviously it's not book related. I'm just saying up front that this video, editing wise, is probably going to be a little choppy because it's just going to take a bit to get some of this out, I feel like. So just putting that out there. But when this video goes up on July 8th, it will be the 1-year anniversary of the day that I realized that I'm asexual. And I've thought about this a lot leading up to this day, and I decided to make a video about it and about my experience with it and everything that happened last year. Partly for myself, because I think it's just something I need to do, and like also for other people, because like honestly not enough people talk about it, and I feel like if more people did, then maybe I would have figured it out a lot sooner than I did. So yeah, I'm kind of shaking right now. Okay. So yeah, I'm doing this for myself and possibly for anybody who sees this video and has some sort of connection with it and maybe realizes that they're similar or like this too. Because I feel like making it more common and like normal will like decrease what everybody who is ace has to go through, which usually involves having no idea that it's even an option or a thing, and then thinking that there's something wrong with you because you don't seem to fit anywhere, before finally figuring out that it is a thing and just feeling like relief when everything clicks together. So I'm dividing this video into 4 sections. How I found out, how I dealt with it initially, the process of telling other people, and where I am with it now. First, if you don't know, I'm gonna go through like some basic definitions, since there could be people watching this who don't know what it is or have never heard of it. Okay, so asexual is a sexual orientation, and it's basically just someone who does not experience sexual attraction. And being aromantic is someone who doesn't experience romantic attraction. Me personally, I am both. So it's basically like not being attracted to anybody. And it's different for everybody. I mean, it's an entire scale with, you know, varying degrees of each thing between, I'm doing a terrible job describing this. So what I talk about in this video is my own personal experiences and the way that I perceive things based on those experiences. So just a disclaimer that this is specific to me, but things are different for every single person who is ace, which is the abbreviation, I guess. Abbreviation for asexual, and aro is the abbreviation for aromantic. Okay, so first, how I found out. Also, I apologize that I'm probably gonna be looking down a lot because I did type some of this stuff out so I don't forget things that I want to include, and just with how worked up I am, I'm probably gonna forget to like look up when I speak sometimes. So I heard the word a few years ago when I was a freshman in college, and for timeline references, I'm about to be a senior. My roommate and I, who is my best friend, we had somehow gotten into a conversation about it, and I just had like this quick thought of like, oh, that's a thing, like maybe that's me. But I just like pushed it aside at the time because I still didn't fully understand it, what it meant. Like at the time I just thought it meant like somebody who didn't want to be in a relationship. And because I did, I was like, well, that can't be me, which is not what asexual means. So flash forward to a little over a year ago, June 2019, and I made the crazy and impulsive decision to join Bumble. I don't know, it was very sudden. I just remember sitting there thinking like, I'm almost 21 years old and I've never been in a relationship, I've never been kissed, blah blah blah. And I was like, well, maybe it won't happen if I don't like do something to put myself out there and like make it happen. So I was on Bumble for a few days, just like talking to people and getting to know them as you do. And it started making me really anxious. So after like 3 or 4 days, I was like completely ready to delete the app and just be done with all of it. But then I met the person who would become my boyfriend for a little while. We clicked immediately. We had a lot in common, and like a ton of similar interests. We would text for hours about anime and TV shows, and we would like analyze things, and it was just great. I mean, things were great at first, and then I started feeling weird. So I'm not gonna go much into this part because just thinking about it makes me feel sick. Even a year later. Long story short, kissing happened. It made me feel weird. At first I just kind of wrote it off as nerves. That like I was just like nervous or whatever. But on July 7th, 2019, after like excessive kissing, I actually threw up. And I think it was then that I knew. I didn't want to believe it at first, but I knew. I remember having this moment of like, oh my god, I'm ace. But it wasn't until the next day, which is like the day that I officially consider the day, that I fully believed it. So I started doing tons of research. I was reading articles and watching YouTube videos. I was all over the internet. I even FaceTimed my best friend with the plan to tell her what was going on, but I didn't end up going through with it. At that time, I just said something about like kissing being weird. I don't really remember. I think I just like couldn't say anything to other people yet until I knew like 100% sure myself. Even then, I didn't want to believe it, even though I knew, if that makes any sense. So that was a Monday, that first day, and I spent almost the entire week researching. I even got onto an online therapy thing called 7 Cups, which I highly recommend if you ever need someone to talk to. It's completely free and it really helped me. So by the weekend, I knew without a doubt, and I planned to tell my boyfriend at the time the following Monday. Mostly because that weekend my family and I went to the lake, and I didn't want to get into that with anybody until after that was over. Which was actually really nice. Like, it was nice to get away for a few days. And like I remember we went kayaking one of the days, and I remember just like whispering it to myself over and over again, just saying like, I'm asexual, I'm asexual, just like whispering it to myself when we were like on the lake, just to get used to saying it. Then on that Monday, I did stick to my promise to myself, and I told my boyfriend. And he was like really understanding and supportive. We talked through a lot of things, and it really did seem like everything was going to be okay. And it was a couple weeks after that that I realized I'm also aromantic, and that was what really messed me up. And like, I honestly don't know how I didn't put it together, how I didn't put all of this together sooner, because, you know, looking back at like my childhood and even like high school and stuff, I mean, the signs were all there. Here's a short list of things that I didn't think anything of until after I realized all of this. I've never had a crush. I just haven't, and I just assumed that that was normal to just not. And that other people like around me, whenever they would talk about stuff like that, they were just like exaggerating. And another thing, when people started like getting interested in relationship stuff at middle school, I just like wrote off my lack of feelings as like being too young, because I'm just like, we're 13, like who dates in middle school? And then in high school, I was in a small program. There was only like 14 of us, and I told myself that it would be weird to date anyone because we were like a little family. And I also just told myself that I was too focused on school anyway. But then college happened, and nothing changed. There's other stuff too I don't really want to talk about because it's too much, but there's a lot. So now I'm going to talk about the aftermath of figuring it out and how I like dealt with it or didn't deal with it. So especially in the beginning, I kind of equate this whole process to like going through the 5 stages of grief, which, I mean, in a way, I guess I was sort of grieving. Like, I was grieving who I thought I was and the life that I thought that I was gonna have, you know, and it just, everything felt like it was falling apart. But I mean, I can even pinpoint those moments of like those 5 sections. That's like denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Like, I very distinctly went through each of those. You know, like denial, like I said, I didn't want to believe it at first. I mean, even during that week of research when I knew, I mean, I still kept going back and forth between I was like, yes, this is me, and being like, no, there's absolutely no way that I could be that. I was like, oh, I'm just being stupid, like, no, this isn't possible. And then the next moment, I would be like, yes, it is. Once it fully settled in that I was, that's when the anger started. I got angry. This was probably when I lost the most amount of sleep. I mean, I would wake up constantly throughout the night, every night, and I would just be so mad. Like, I hated that I was ace. I hated that, like, I had to be this way. I hated that I wasn't normal. And I was just angry because it felt like something had been taken away from me. I don't know. And that kind of goes along with bargaining. These two kind of overlapped for me. It kind of turned into like, when I would get angry, I would also have thoughts like, I will do anything to make this not true. I was a complete mess. I mean, I still remember waking up in the middle of the night, like gasping because I couldn't breathe. And I just kept having like anxiety attacks in my sleep because I was so messed up. The first wave of depression hit, I think, around the time I also realized I was aromantic. Through like the anger and bargaining stages, I remember thinking like, at least I'm only asexual and I'm not aromantic too. I was like, because that's too much to handle, I can't do both. So then when I realized that it was both, I just got really sad. And like, again, I felt like something had been taken from me. I felt like the life that I was gonna have was taken away from me, and I just didn't know where to go from there. And everything just felt like really hopeless. And I was so tired and drained all the time. And I was like exhausted from thinking about it all the time. Like, it was the only thing I could think about, like, all day, every day, was just worrying about everything. So then I did eventually reach acceptance. One day when I was home alone, it was like everything crashed over me. I mean, I remember this so vividly, being in my bedroom, like on the floor on my knees, like clutching my stomach because I couldn't breathe. And I was like crying and hyperventilating. But the thing was that was the first time I ever cried. Like, throughout all of this, I hadn't cried about it yet. So in a way, I think that helped to finally just cry it out and get all of those feelings out. So when I calmed down enough, I remember standing up and looking in the mirror, and I said out loud to myself, like, I am asexual and I am aromantic. And like, this sounds like really cliche, but it was like this sudden and huge relief. And it was like something just like clicked inside of me, and things got better for a little while after that. So now I'm going to talk about my experiences with telling other people. So shortly after all that stuff went down, it was towards the end of July that I told my best friend. I went into the backyard so that I would be, you know, not near anybody who was in the house because I didn't want to be overheard. And I FaceTimed her. It took me a good 20 to 30 minutes before I was actually able to like spit it out. I remember this so vividly too. I just kept saying like, I think I'm, and then I would just get stuck. It's like the words were stuck in my throat. I could not get them out. And, you know, after a while of this going on, and she said, I think I already know what you're going to say. And I was like, I think you know what I'm gonna say too. Because we're so much alike, and I just feel like she knew. And she told me, and I quote, because I remember this conversation so clearly, there's nothing you could say or do that's going to make me see you differently or not love you anymore. And that was the thing that I needed to hear. And it's not that like I didn't already know that, but I think just having that like confirmation really helped me to finally do it. So yeah, I told her, and we talked about it for a while after, which was really helpful, honestly, to talk to somebody uninvolved in the situation. And it was a few days after that that I broke up with my boyfriend, which I felt really guilty about at first, but like I knew that it was ultimately for the best, because I mean, I didn't want that kind of relationship, and I definitely get that now. Then when school officially started, I started meeting with a counselor at my school's counseling center. So I mean, that honestly changed my life. We talked through me being asexual and what that meant for me and everything that I had been through over the summer. We also started making a plan for how I was going to tell my family, because that felt like a really big deal to me. And then like I also just wanted to do it as soon as possible because I just wanted to be done with it. and I just didn't want to feel like I was like keeping this huge secret. I also wanted to tell my other best friend, and my therapist helped me through that, and she wanted me to like monitor my anxiety levels throughout that process and that conversation and compare it to like the anxiety I felt when I told the other best friend. So my friend and I got dinner on campus and brought it back to my apartment, and my roommate, who's the best friend that already, this is getting confusing, but I didn't want to use names in this video in case people weren't cool with that. So my roommate, who already know, she was the first person that I told besides my boyfriend, she was there too. Anyway, so we were in the apartment, and I was actually pretty calm until it was actually time to say it, and then I kind of started freaking out again. And she told me that it was okay and to just say whatever I needed to say. And I placed my hand on my stomach. It's like, I think it's just like a thing I do when I get really anxious, so it's like, you can't see this. But I just kind of like laid my hand on my stomach, and she was just like, oh my god, are you pregnant? And I was like, no. But then I was like, it's kind of the opposite of that. And then I just said it. It was actually the quickest that it ever took me. It took like less than 2 minutes. I was pretty proud of that. And she immediately hugged me and told me she was proud of me, and we talked about it a little bit, and that was that. Going back to therapy, so after talking about these experiences with like telling these two friends, my therapist told me something that was one of the best things I learned during my time there. And it's that how I feel right before I do the thing, the anxiety in that moment is the worst it's ever gonna get. And once it's over, then I'll feel the relief. And that has helped me through so much, because when I do have those moments where I feel uncontrollably anxious, I remind myself of that, of like, what you feel right now is the worst it's ever gonna feel. And then you do it and it'll be over. So the next big step was to tell my family, and I picked the exact date ahead of time, which was October 25th. It was in my mind, I was like, this is enough time to work through what I need to work through in therapy. And I was like, I also need this to be done before Y'all Fest happens in November, because I was just like, I cannot handle a 10+ hour car ride feeling anxious about this whole thing. And it would also give me another therapy session between the Friday that I told them and Y'all Fest. So like we worked through like best and worst case scenarios and the most realistic outcome, and we talked through like exactly what I was going to say and like how I was going to explain it, because I was pretty sure they didn't know what it was. Then on Friday, October 25th, 2019, I had a session that morning, and my therapist said that I looked terrified when she came to get me from the waiting room, which is how I felt. We went over again what I was going to say, and we talked about how I was feeling, which, if I remember, I feel like, I mean, I was terrified and nervous, but I was also just like, I am just ready to get this over with. So I told my mom first. She works from home, so I knew that she would be alone, and I sent her a text before I left campus and told her that I needed to tell her something when I got home. And I did this because I knew that if I didn't set it up like that, that I would get home and not go through with it. And I was like, I was ready. I was like, I want to get this done today. So I drove home and I blasted some Glee music, which did pretty good in calming me down. It's about a 20-minute drive, so when I got close, I actually turned the music off and I just started saying like I'm asexual over and over again to myself to like get used to saying it so I wouldn't get stuck on the words like I had previously. And when I turned into the neighborhood, that was when I really started panicking. It just like hit me suddenly that like this was really happening, and like it just felt like everything was about to change and I was freaking out. And I don't know, it also kind of felt like surreal, where it was just like, this is about to happen, like it's about to happen. And I walked in the house and then burst into tears, which I think really kind of freaked my mom out. It was not what she was expecting. I don't remember this situation as clearly as the other times. I mean, it was honestly kind of a blur. We were sitting on the couch and I was like off and on crying and like having a lot of trouble calming down. I don't know, it just felt like once I said the words, like that's it, there's no going back. And I think she was asking me questions and stuff and found out that it was like sort of related to my boyfriend, who she didn't know yet that I had broken up with. That's a long story. But that it was also sort of not related, and this went around for a while. This was the time that took me the longest to get it out. And it's like, it's not like I thought things were gonna go bad. Like I knew that it would be okay, but I don't know, I just feel like anytime in this situation, like it's scary because you don't know, you can't know, even though you do. And that doesn't make any sense, but like, I don't know. But I eventually did it, and I did explain what it meant. I also had previously, like before I came home, printed out information from Avon, the asexuality website, to like help further explain. And then later that night, she helped me tell my dad and my brother. I don't think I've ever felt so relieved in my life. Things got a lot better after that. So now I'm going to talk about where I am now, which also includes the months leading up to where I am now, because that's also important, I feel like. So I was a lot happier for a while, about 2 months maybe, November and December. I told the people that I needed to tell, you know, their positive results all around. I mean, I felt closer to my family than I had in a while, and I had friends who were always going to be there for me. And then January 2020 rolled around. I don't know exactly what triggered it, but like, I mean, I took a hard dive back into like this spiraling depression. I do think a lot of it was like, I had spent so much time figuring out how to tell people and worrying about what was going to happen that I hadn't thought much beyond getting through that. So once things, you know, kind of calmed down and settled, it was like it started to sink in that this wasn't just like a just for now kind of thing. Like, this is the rest of my life, like, and there's nothing I can do about that. That's when things got really bad. I mean, I felt like I hated myself. I hated being asexual. I was like sad all the time, and like I just felt like sad and lonely, and I was like terrified of the future because I was just like, I can't live with my roommate forever. You know, but I mean, for me, being asexual and aromantic, like, I'm not gonna get married or be in a relationship again. But I was also like scared of being alone, and like I want kids, and I was like scared of having to raise kids on my own. I mean, there were days when like the last thing I wanted was to like get out of bed and get through the day. I mean, some days, the only thing that did like get me up was like knowing that like if I don't get up, nobody's gonna feed the guinea pigs. And I mean, I would also like bargain with myself where I would be like, if you get up now and you go to class and then you like go to work for a couple hours or whatever, or like my office hours as like a peer mentor, then like you can come back to the apartment and like lay in bed all afternoon if that's what you want to do. I started going to group therapy in addition to like my one-on-one sessions, and I learned a lot of techniques for like dealing with negative thoughts that were just like constantly running through my head. And it took a lot and it took a while, but I did slowly start to feel better. And around spring break in March is when I finally broke out of it. I don't know what snapped me out. Like maybe the techniques and the therapy had like finally broken through. Maybe me dealing with it all had just like finally run its course. I mean, I don't know. But I started feeling like me again for the first time in a year. And over the last couple of months, I mean, I've started reading again. I've been writing. I'm making YouTube videos. I also joined some Facebook groups for people who are on the aromantic and or asexual spectrums. And that was a huge help for me in realizing that I didn't lose something, like something wasn't taken away from me, and that like I can still do everything I want to do in life without being in that kind of relationship. So like, I don't know, that just really helped me in like letting go of what I thought my life was supposed to be, because I was still really hanging on to that. And I just focused on what I wanted it to be moving forward. And here I am now. And I'm happy. I'm so happy. I mean, I honestly think I'm happier now than I have been maybe in my entire life. And I'm like happier with myself and who I am. And like a year ago, I mean, I didn't know how I was gonna get through it. I mean, every day felt like such a struggle. I didn't know how I was supposed to survive through the day or the next week or the next month, let alone like an entire year. But I'm here. I made it, and I'm like in such a better and healthier place than I was a year ago. And it was without a doubt the hardest thing I've ever been through. But I feel like because of that, I know that, I mean, I can do anything, because I'm just like, if I can survive that, I can survive through anything. So yeah, that's my story. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about like asexuality in general, or like about my personal experiences. I mean, I'm happy to answer anything. If you're watching this and you fall on either of the spectrums, I mean, feel free to share your own story or talk about it. I mean, I love connecting with other people like me. That's why I'm in all of these groups. Or if you're watching this and think you might be ace and or arrow, just know that it's okay to not be sure. And it's okay to be scared or angry or sad. It's okay to feel whatever you gotta feel to process everything and to come to terms with it. And if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. You can leave a comment, or you can private message me on social media. All of my social media links are in the description box below. That's my experience from the last 12 months. Yeah, I'm just really happy and excited to move forward with my life. That's all I'm gonna say. So, bye.